Kintsugi Heroes acknowledges funding and was made possible with support from the Community Broadcasting Foundation. Find out more at cbf.org.au.
Welcome to the Kintsugi Heroes podcast, where we share inspirational stories of everyday people going through different challenges and how they overcome them. Please be aware that the story you're about to hear may have moments of deeply felt emotions and personal experiences. If anything you hear has a triggering effect, please reach out to someone who can help keep you safe. If you love this conversation, we'd love you to like and share it with your friends so we can continue to share more inspiration and hope to as many people as possible. Now, listen up for our next hero story.
In this episode, we bring you the inspiring journey of Chris Edwards. A teacher and mental health advocate, Chris faced immense challenges from a young age, including domestic violence, self-harm, and substance abuse. He struggled with childhood trauma, identity issues, and severe addiction, but found healing through sharing stories and walking. Chris overcame multiple life-changing events, like seizures, a car accident, to become sober and direct his energy into helping others with mental health initiatives. Chris's path to recovery is an incredible and inspiring journey. Enjoy this one with Chris Edwards.
Chris, welcome. And to all the listeners, welcome again to another conversation in Kintsugi Heroes, Stories That Matter. And today we're talking to Chris Edwards, who has quite a story. Morning, Chris.
Morning, John. How are we going?
Mate, I am terrific, and I'm looking forward to a chat. And of course, we had a pre-recording chat, and you have quite a roller coaster of a story to share. So thank you for coming on. And I know you're a teacher, someone who works with kids with certain behavioural challenges and situational challenges, but you've had a very varied journey to that place. So I thought I might ask you to share with the listeners today maybe who you are now, right? Like just a little bit of what you do and what drives you, and then we perhaps can wander back to where it all began.
Yeah, definitely. So who I am now is, like you said, I'm a teacher. I teach Year 4 students. It's my first year in teaching. I've been studying for the last 5 years. I had to do a bridging course because I didn't finish high school. But in the time that I've been studying, I worked as a teacher's aide. And the support I provided in the classroom was one-on-one with behavioural support for the children who couldn't, or not that they couldn't, but struggled to regulate themselves if they felt under pressure with the learning, or just the daily routine if that was changed slightly, if there was a surprise assembly or something like that. So, and also outside of work, I got my volunteer work as well as a volunteer mental health support worker with the grassroots mental health initiative, Walk It Off. And we actually launched a group in Warragamba this year, which is my group, which I helped get going. So I've been meeting with different people in the community to get that going. So it's been going for 7 weeks now.
Wow.
But yeah, but amongst all that, I'm probably 2.5 years since my son passed by suicide. And that's been a major catalyst in what's going on in my life outside of work, particularly with setting up a Walk It Off and providing a space for people, particularly men. It's a men's mental health initiative. Find a space that they can just be themselves, whether they want to talk about it, things, or just walk, or just have a coffee. And, some people may just come for a coffee and go back home, and that's okay. It's a whole concept of you be you. You come along, and if you need that space, we've got that space for you. If you need to have a chat, we're here to chat. And then we provide a little feed afterwards just to enable that conversation a little bit further,
Yep.
So basically that's where I am now and what I'm about now. So teaching and supporting those in the community that need it.
So you started a branch of Walk It Off, which was an initiative that was reaching out to provide a venue for men to connect and care and share.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit. So you reached out to Walk It Off because of your need to deal with Josh's passing. Is that?
Yeah. So I reached out to Walk It Off in August last year, and that was a big push from my therapist for one, but also my wife, who could see that obviously I was not dealing with things. I could probably work maybe 4 or 5 weeks at a time before I'd have to have days off because I just wasn't coping. I try and have that work there, to have that routine to manage the grief and the loss, the depression, the crap that comes with that. But it was coming up to every 6 weeks at least. I'd have to stop, and I'd stop for 4 or 5 days.
Was that the nature, like just because the process of resolving, or like what was happening for you?
For me, I guess it was that I've just, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but I've just got this process of just getting on with things.
Yeah.
I can deal with this later. I'll move forward now. Yes, it's a focus I need to look at, but it's not a now thing. I'm going to put it in a box to deal with it after.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to do, and it just wasn't working. And so my therapist said I've got a couple of clients. They meet with this other group, walking group, but there may be another one you could reach out for. And just out of a conflict of interest, I didn't want to join the same group with her clients. So I looked around. I found the group at Springwood, Walk It Off, which is the initial group that started, and back in August. And yeah, so it's just walk with them. And it was a 3.5K walk, which was about 40 minutes, pretty easy, pretty level ground. But it was the most exercise I'd done in like 3 years. And so I was gassed. I was tired afterwards. I'm like, this is ridiculous. That's 3.5Ks. What sort of physical shape am I in that I'm this tired after a short walk like that? It wasn't a heavy pace either. It's just this casual pace. So I started going that group. They always meet on Wednesdays. Met with the blokes there. From that first night, I felt a real connection that this could be something for me. And they talked about, that's crazy, they talked about walking to Terrigal to launch a Terrigal group. So that was the first night. I went home and I said to Jo, my wife, I said, there's this idea floating around that we're going to walk to Terrigal in October. So it's only 2 months, it was a very short time to train. She goes, okay, you can do it. And I was like, I'm not sure that's the answer I wanted to hear. I was wanting to hear, no, that's crazy, stop it. But she's been amazing in supporting me in this different kind of cathartic process, I guess, of getting out there and being amongst people and hearing other people's hurts, stresses, but also sharing mine and just having that space to find out that and to know that it's okay with not being okay.
I'm really interested in how that helped you, right? So you with a bunch of blokes, you turn up, you realize you probably need the exercise, but there's a journey there. Therapy has been helping. There's a whole thing to help you. When you connect with these guys who walk on a Wednesday night, and then there's a big project, and that turns things around for you, or starts.
It gave me a focus, gave me a drive to almost just focus to do something different, and it was something different for me. And within doing that, I had space to think, because we're not always talking. Like some of our training sessions that we had were 20K walk, so you're not always going to be talking at 20Ks. You're going to be in your head a fair bit, so you're able to mull over some things and processes and memories. Another thing that helps me is I write a lot, or I use my phone, or I voice record my thoughts in my phone. So I've become quite reflective over the years, and find that with having the space to be reflective through walking and hearing stories and sharing stories. That was a major aspect of my recovery.
Yes.
So from this grief, and as Joe says now, launching Warragamba is just an extension of that healing process. She sees the positives in my character, I guess, and how it's changed me. She now sees me if I'm starting to slump, she'll go for a walk. Let's go for a walk. And I'll kind of debate with her, but I know I need to go for a walk. I need to go to that space.
Really relatable, mate. And I love the metaphor of you walking in parallel with the recovery from from the grief of losing John. I want to now thank you for giving us a snapshot of something so massive. Of course, everybody has developed the experience to go through or reach a point in their life, right? So if we go right back to the beginning, you of course had a series of things in your life that, in some ways prepare you for the unpreparable, the unimaginable. Tell us a little bit about who you were as a kid and what that was like.
Yeah, life when I was a kid, it's strange. As a kid, you kind of think, this is kind of normal. This life, this is okay. But when I think back to things like, I was reflecting on this the other day, just going, this is ridiculous that those thoughts were with me at such a young age. But I remember sitting underneath the wattle tree outside the back door, and I had a piece of paper and a crayon, and I was writing a runaway letter, basically, to get away. I screwed it up because I thought I'd get in trouble if they found out I ran away. But the reason why I wanted to run away, because even at that age, I knew that wasn't a safe place. That wasn't a healthy environment. The environment I grew up in was through domestic violence. There was always a lot of screaming, hitting, everyone kind of against each other, sort of thing. So yeah, that was basically how my childhood went. And I've met people over the years, probably in my mid-20s. I met this lady that used to live up the road, and I used to play with her son. She was on the train. I'm coming home from work. She goes, "Oh, is that Chris? Chris, is that you?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's me. What's up?" I go, "Who are you?" Like, I didn't recognize her. She told me who she was. Okay. And she goes, "Do you remember anything from when you used to come to our house?" Because you used to come to our house and used to just be in tears and crying, saying they're fighting again, they're fighting again. I was like, "That's crazy. I don't remember those things." So it's stories like that that really put my ideas about how my life was in a firmer place, because from those experiences with domestic violence, there's also the code that goes around that you can't talk about what happens at home.
Yeah.
So that's an ingrained, learnt understanding. So when you go to try and process through that, you question yourself, and you wonder how much of it is actually true. So yeah, but another major incident I had was when I was 14. I started to cut. I burned as well, but I was suicidal. And when I was 14, I was prepared to take that step. I wrote no letter. I just wanted things to stop. It's not that I wanted to die, it's just that I wanted things to stop. So I'm sitting there on the edge of my bed, and I see my cat, whose name was Marmalade. And I'm like, if I take this step, who's going to look after my cat? Like, who's going to look after Marmalade? I don't know how long I had him at that point, but it wasn't much longer that he passed, because I must have had him from a young age. I was 14, he was probably 12 then. So I'd had him all my life. He was my best friend. And so I didn't know who was going to look after him. And that basically stopped me in my tracks. I knew I had to care for this ginger cat, which, strangely enough, has become a bit of a statement for me when I'm talking to people, particularly at Walk-It-Off. I ask, "Who's your Marmalade? Who's your support person?" I'm happy to be that support person. We at Walk-It-Off are happy to be that Marmalade for you.
Yeah.
And I've learned over the years that through different trials that I've been through, I've collected different marmalades depending on what I need to discuss.
Yeah.
So I've got people out there that I've talked to them and I've told them, you're basically a marmalade. This is why I call you marmalade, because you can help me with this situation, or you can help me with. From that, I moved forward. I had other issues with my identity and working out who I was as a person. But from about 16, I realized that I need to seek more stable support. So I sought out people. I sought out that could help me understand who I was as a person.
Well, that sounds like a really mature response. Do you mind if I just sort of go back a little bit to, the 13, 14-year-old who ends up being through the gaze of a ginger cat called Marmalade, right? Ends up staying with us, right? So you said it wasn't about dying. You were just wanted it to stop. What was what was happening for you, right? What was triggering things that you were self-harming and getting to the point of suicide?
I was having a lot of issues with my identity as a person, and there was a strong religious backing that's in the household that you couldn't be anything but heterosexual. You could be gay, you could be bi, you could be this, that, the other. By that time, I already had a sexual relationship, and that was with another guy, and it was consensual. So there was that. I can't be a person because I've just broken that law. I've broken that rule. There was also, which I've through therapy identified, the sexual abuse that I had at the hands of others. And it was really confusing at the time because it's not that I remembered the details. It was sleep paralysis that I was having.
Mm.
So I'd wake up and I couldn't move. And I had this nightmare of this shadow holding me down. And that was just through the therapy I've been through, the understanding that I've been sexually abused. So, and that stayed with me though. I've dealt with that probably till my mid-20s with sleep paralysis stuff. So, but understanding that was because of the trauma I'd been through, not just some airy fairy nightmare that I was having. It's a reason. Yeah, so that's essentially where I was at when I was 13, 14. There's something not right with me. I can't talk to anyone because my only person I can talk to is a ginger cat.
Yeah.
He can't help me much. Let's be honest. So what else options do I have? I need this noise. I need this agony to stop.
Yeah. So were you looking for a voice of wisdom or a voice of escape or a voice, of love? What were you looking for?
I guess at the end of it, there is that wisdom, that love, but just validation that I'm okay as a person.
Yeah.
And that's taken years. Like from that point when I was 14, it took me till I was 30 to accept myself as a person. And that was the ultimate validation, I guess, I was seeking.
Yeah.
It's not from others, but
Yeah.
from myself. So understanding that regardless of my sexuality, regardless of my depression, my anxiety, what I've done, I had to validate myself. And at that point, when I was 30, it was the validation that I was angry, that I was an angry person because of all this hurt, this pain. I had to accept the fact that, to a degree, not that I condone it, that I was okay with being angry.
Yeah.
And that mindset needed to change. And
Yeah.
from that acknowledgement, that's when I really started to move forward, rather than going forward and slipping back and going, what's the problem? Thinking it might be alcoholism or being addicted to alcohol or substances, which I was at the time. That's when I was 30. So once I acknowledged that, I was able to move forward to stepping away from that substance abuse.
So you talk about substance abuse. So there you are, as a teen or early 20s, and you're trying to deal with the unimaginable, and the lack of resources around that to deal with it. So much so that your best friend was a cat. How did substances enter your life, and what problem did they solve?
They didn't really solve any problems. They created more. But so when I was 14, again around that age, it's a little bit grey the timeline, but
Yeah.
it's around that age that I started binge drinking, which of course led to
Which was the culture at the time, really.
which was a culture at the time, but that also leads into avenues of use, marijuana and that sort of thing. That was my main vice, was alcohol and marijuana until probably in my mid-20s, where I started to use heavier substances. So speed and that sort of stuff. So, and that really ramped up to when I was 30 because we stepped back. An exit point out of the house where I was growing up was to get married, basically. So I got married, and I had 3 beautiful kids from that marriage. But when at 29, that marriage broke apart. One, because of the unresolved issues I had were impacting on that relationship, and recognizing that journey just wasn't progressing any further than what it was, even though we've got the kids.
Yeah.
And that was a great stress on me, because my dad left when I was 9. I found out he left because he was being abused by my mum.
Wow.
But he didn't talk about that. But I had this idea that as a male, as a head male of the family, the eldest male, I had to carry on that family name. I had to maintain that figurehead, basically.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad's relationship broke up. It was a promise to myself that this relationship would break up.
Yeah.
But that's a silly thinking. Really, I don't really know what's happening around the corner. And because I hadn't dealt with other issues, it was bound to happen. Looking back, that's what happened, and that led me to a rather heavy 8-month period of heavy narcotic use on a daily basis. And after the 8 months, that's when I came to that realization of who I was as a person, and I needed to stop. So I did, and I've come up to 12 years sober from narcotics.
Wow. That's such an amazing, turning point, with so much. Was it about rock bottom, or was it just like an accumulation of momentum? Or
I guess you could say it was rock bottom. I was in the security industry at that point, probably halfway through a 16-year career in security. And I was involved in working in clubs. So there was an environment there where I could obtain what I needed. And the means by obtaining that were not friendly means.
Wow.
So that was another point of acknowledging that I like being angry and I need to fix this. So that when you talk about rock bottom, I was living in the cheapest rental I could find. I was living to pay for the fuel for my car. I had no insurance on my car because I decided to not use that because I needed to supply my need. I was living off cheap baked beans and 2-minute noodles and party pies. Basic foods to get by to supply my need.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought it was okay. I thought that was great life, despite the fact that I had rare moments of being sober. So I look back on these photos from back then, different parties I had at my place. I'm like, how did I not realize, how cooked this situation was? So
just too much fun with party pies and baked beans, mate.
that's it. That's it. That's it. So, but yeah, it was probably a good analogy that it was rock bottom for me. Like this is, what's going on if this is the meals I'm having.
Yeah. And of course, at work, you were often interacting violently with people.
Very violent. Yeah.
So was that an outlet, or like you say, you enjoyed being angry? What was that?
I think it was an outlet. I think it was, a unacknowledged rage and anger at the crap. I had enough of the crap. Because at that time, I was also started talking to my dad again, because I stopped talking to him for a while because Mum said he was the abuser. He was the instigator in these situations. And through talking to him and talking to one of my sisters, I pieced together these puzzle pieces, and from my own fractured memories, I could put these things together. Through my sister's stories, they validated my dad's story, and I could work out who was the main instigator of the home life. I started talking to him, and I could see that the crap that was going on, and being frustrated with that. I've been lied to for so long. I've missed out on a relationship with this man of such integrity and honesty and faith, because I believe these stories, which you think you should believe stories from your mum.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
I'm not saying, that it was wrong for me to believe her.
Well, you're a kid, man. How are you going to work
As
this
a kid,
out?
she's my sole guardian at the moment. And so, I was just tired of the crap. And I think that was my outlet, was just, someone else.
So here we are at 30. Your first wife has left. You've got young kids that relationship with is a bit dodgy. You're in you're working in an industry that is challenging for well-being, lifestyle well-being. How on earth do you open the door to something different?
It was getting sober, and that was a literal shock to my system. I had a moment of sobriety where I thought, I've got to get sober. So I stopped everything in one night. Everything stopped. And that was not the best way to do it. That did not work out too well for me. I was at a mate's place and I was finishing off a drink. I went, I don't feel right. And he goes, what's wrong? I've got to go home. He goes, mate, we've barely started. I said, I've got to go. I knew there was some urgency. I had to get home. He didn't live too far from my place, and I'm driving and I can feel convulsions happening in my abdomen. And I've been familiar with seizures before. And I knew that this was what's going to be happening. So I knew I had to get home real quick. These seizures weren't explained to me properly until this episode. Basically, I went and had 2 seizures that night. The hospital was lucky enough just next door to me, literally, where I lived. I walked myself into the ED the next day and said, I've had 2 seizures last night. I'm going to have more. I can tell you now. I said, all right, we'll observe you. Put me into observation. I had another 2 seizures there. With my seizures, because they're pseudo seizures that were based around anxiety, that was the root cause of it, basically. I'm conscious, so I'm able to see things. I'm unable to communicate, but I can see what's going on, which doesn't help the situation. It's causing more stress. So I've looked over to the monitor with my heart rate, and I saw that my heart rate was at 224 beats a minute. I remember that clearly.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to die. I'm like, this is it. I'm not going to die from, some feud with some person in the club, or ODing on something I've shoved up your nose or something. It's here when I'm trying to get well again. And I think I spent about 2 to 3 days in the hospital. And because of my proximity to the hospital, they kept me as an outpatient to health ward. And they basically described my event as an adjustment disorder, adjusting to these massive changes I've had, to living alone, to getting sober, everything combined. My brain just wanted to reset. What happened with that as well is, obviously your body goes through fatigue, and with a standard seizure, you can be fatigued, you can have muscle weakness. This was next level. I lost pretty much, I appeared as if I was a stroke patient. I had droopy face. I had to drag in my right leg. I made a cane out of an old bit of branch I found. And for 3 months, I recognized where I was at, and I taught myself to walk and talk again, basically. It's probably, that was November, October-ish of 2012. So 3 months on from that, it's about February. I'm functioning better. I'm getting back into work. And I realized I can't go back to that place. That's it. It's done. Come March, I'm looking back, I see this as my second chance.
Yeah.
Comes into my life, which is my wife, Jo. So I remember dates and times a bit like Rain Man sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I know it was 12:02 on March the 2nd AM that I met Jo in 2013, because we just moved everyone from the outside bar to the main bar, closed off the outside, and my job in security. And she was there having a few drinks with her girlfriends. And from that's where I started to move forward in becoming a better Chris, better person. It was rocky to start with, because I said to her for a month in, that's it, we're done. It's not going to happen. She's like, what? A little bit confused. I said, bottom line is I'm an asshole. I'm damaged. I'm going to cause you pain. And I was honest with her up front there.
Wow.
She can't remember this conversation. She just remembers being frustrated that I stopped things for a month. But after some consideration, about a week or two later, I said, all right, I'm doing a deal. Let's go. We're going to do this. We're going to stick by each other, thick and thin. Whatever happens, that's it. So we made that decision. That's where we are now. Like, regardless of what's going on, it's not stopping. It's going to keep going. We can get through this. And it's definitely thrown us some challenges to prove to us that we can get through this. Because a month later, I had a major car accident, fell asleep at the wheel, and how I survived is ridiculous. I took out 7 trees just underneath the doors of the bridge.
Wow.
Passenger side door was crumpled against the T-bar, but of course I had no insurance, so then I had a massive debt. I didn't know you could talk down insurance companies until I owed 15 grand to another person, because I totaled their car as well. And I talked him down to 10, and I said, I'll see what I can do. And Joe's dad actually gave me the money to get me through that. I'm like, there's another second chance. Because I asked my dad, I need some money. My dad's like, you got yourself in this mess.
Right.
Take some ownership, get yourself out. And they're the lessons I've learned from my dad is be honest with yourself, have the integrity to know what situation it is and who is actually at fault for that situation. And that's just another bit of a toolkit for my reflective.
So you did that when one thing changes, everything changes. That you were injured?
Done. 3 cracked ribs and a bruise on my right shoulder. So yeah, everyone's like, how did you survive? Like, I'm like, I don't know. It's providence, whatever you want to call it, And that time I actually wasn't speeding. Like, everyone thinks I was being a hoonigan. I'm like, I wasn't actually speeding. I remember seeing the turn off the Morissette, and then I remember seeing the back of the car that I hit, that I spun off the road. So that's about if you know that road, it's about 10 minutes of driving. There's 10 minutes I can't recall before I hit that car. So yeah, that accident happened, and then in the August of that year, my father passed, which was a massive blow. I only knew him really for 3 years to actually build bridges, make men come back good. I've got someone I can lean on, someone who's solid. And he passed. About a month or so later, my ex-wife goes, I'm going back to Melbourne. Because that's where I'm originally from.
Right.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
She says, I'm going back to Melbourne, taking the kids with me. And I gave her a verbal confirmation. So that was it. She took the kids to Melbourne. So then I had to deal with that as well.
So what was during this time of great upheaval and change for you? What was happening with your kids?
Not too sure, to be honest. I was trying to maintain a relationship. I was driving because I moved from Gosford down to Penrith. So I was trying to maintain that relationship, and I was doing the transporting back and forth each week. So I was seeing them regularly. My youngest, she has chromosomal translocation. So basically, she's got too much of chromosome 9, too little of chromosome 8. So that creates cognitive delays and developmental delays. That was another stressor. Anyways, my oldest, she's very much mum's girl. So strangely enough, she's been raised in a very similar situation where mum's manipulated, in my opinion. Not long after that, it was about 12, probably 2 years after that, she's stopped communicating with me really. So I really haven't had a good conversation with her since she was 14. She's 21 now. And of course, my youngest, she is non-verbal, but I see her every fortnight on Zoom. I do my best with, got something called a prolo, which is like a language pattern, keywords, that sort of thing. I know a little bit of Auslan to communicate with her. And then there's Josh, who really just kind of stuck in the middle of all this. He was a bit like me, really. He was wanting to be more, but I guess he felt restricted as well. And as he grew up, I could see characters of myself in him.
Yeah.
Not just his arty self and curious self, but just an early understanding of things just aren't quite right. He came to live with us in 2016 because his mum basically said, I can't care for him. Can you care for him? Of course. So from that time, that's when I had the major influence in his life for the better, where he was able to go to school because mum was trying to do homeschooling, community schools. It was something I was pushing for, was to get them to school, because 2010 we travelled, 2009 we travelled for a year, and that's when we started homeschooling. While we travelled, it worked. When we settled, I was like, we had a homeschooling community that was great. But everything started to fall apart with that community. Relationships fell apart. And that's where I said they need to start going to an actual school. They need that. But mum persisted with the homeschooling. Tried to do a bit of schooling with them, but didn't quite work. But when Josh came up here, it was like, no ifs, no buts, you're going to school. And it was a struggle. It was a hard trot for him. But he did really well, developing himself and understanding the social protocols that needed to be manners, basic manners, letting people know where you're going. Because we told him that when he started up at school, you need to listen to your teacher. Because we said your teacher, not every teacher.
Yeah.
When he had an upset with another teacher, that wasn't his core teacher. So it went to, didn't go too well. And they lost him at school. And because he was, slight of frame, he was quite a small lad then, he was easily able to hide in different places. And he was hiding back in his classroom, made his teachers, even though that looked different. But it's because that person who was giving him directions wasn't his teacher.
He pulled a fast one on the, manipulated the advice.
Yeah,
Sounds, and I hope, are you, is it all right if I ask you about Josh?
Yeah, keep going. Yeah,
mate. What was he? Obviously, he'd been with his mum for a while. What was Josh like as a bloke, as a young man?
it was a funny little thing. He wasn't an athletic person. He was more arty. He was thin-framed. So when he ran, he kind of ran with limbs going everywhere. And we kind of nicknamed it Spider Monkey, because if you see those images of spider monkeys, that's how he ran. He was a brilliant artist, a digital artist. So he made up his own comic books based off Spider Monkey. He was very intelligent. He made up his own language, basically, written language, based off Japanese characters and Tolkien characters, kind of blended them and made up his own language, basically. He was a very caring person. He was very empathetic. And these last factors of being caring and empathetic really shone through after he passed. We always talk to him about how you're a young teen. Think about things before you do it, because your frontal lobe isn't developed. Gave you examples of a friend who had started work, and he was similar age to Josh. Horrible workplace accident, got his hand trapped in a machine, but then thought, how am I going to get that hand out? So I can get my other hand to get that hand out, but got both hands trapped basically. And gave that example to Josh and listen, that's because his frontal lobe, and the situation, everything else, it just didn't work for him to process properly. So when something happens, you need to really think about it, whether you should be doing that. So it was quite amazing how he progressed forward to a point where he was acknowledged as an artist and was asked to do illustrations for a young writers magazine for Penrith. And he wrote his own things for that as well. When he passed, it was really that shining point for him where we really saw what community he had. People come up and telling stories that, he helped me at lunchtime because I had no food, so he bought me some chips or something and sat with me because I had no friends either. And these weren't just people from his grade; these were students from lower grades because he was in high school, from year 7 right up to year 12. A real eclectic group of people. It wasn't really the outcasts, strange arty kids. It was anyone basically. We ended up just setting up an area for people to come and have their piece and say goodbye to him at the front of our house. And these probably 3 or 4 tall goths, which I'm fine with, came up and like, how are you connected to Josh? They were year 12 students. They're talking about how he'd like to hang out with us, talk about music stuff. And which I thought was great because that's what I talked about. That's one thing that's been constant for me is I can always go back to my music. I can hear the stories of these artists and go, okay, maybe I can learn something from this. And so like his eclectic friends, his music collection was eclectic as well, as is mine. And it's funny, I was thinking about this last year, that's one thing that's been passed on from my dad as well, is his love. Dad loved Rodgers and Hammerstein, but he also loved Black Sabbath and Pink Floyd. So, it's the same with
that's eclectic, definitely.
So that's the same with me. Like, I remember as a kid hearing Dark Side of the Moon on the original vinyl, and for the 20th anniversary, 92, I think it was, my dad got me the 20th anniversary CD.
Yeah.
I didn't have a CD player, so I had to listen to it at his place. But,
I know it's a really challenging and kind of difficult choice to go there, but Josh sounds amazing. What do you think was going on with him? Where did he get to?
it's the really frustrating part because we would always talk. We'd always, share stories and stuff. And I always said to him, when you're 16, this is the most frustrating part. When you're 16, I'll tell you what you want to know, but you have to wait till you're 16. That's my one rule. We can talk about anything you like, but if it's my history or our family history, you have to wait till you're 16. But talk about whatever you like. And I gave him a few little, hints about what was going on, but I didn't give him everything. So that was the frustrating thing, that he didn't talk to me about how he was feeling, that he was talking to kids at school that were being bullied, that he was helping people that were upset. That was my frustration with him. In the end, I guess I need to know that stuff, and whether it's a frustration with myself because I didn't tell him that he needs to offload, it's something to ask, but knowing how much he helped people and how many people he helped, like over a 2-week period, it was December the 19th that he passed.
Wow.
So it was Christmas time, New Year's. We probably had up to 100 different kids and families come up.
Wow.
pay tribute, to him and tell these stories. He couldn't offload these thoughts, these understandings of other people. So there was this vicarious trauma for me that he was carrying. In particular, and I only found out this with one of the families that came up on one of the mornings out the front. My mother actually thanked me for Josh. I was really confused. And she thanked me because her daughter had attempted 2 weeks prior. And she said to her daughter, you need to have someone who's your support, who's, I guess, your marmalade. Who is it? The daughter said it was Josh. So knowing that, I'm like, why couldn't you talk to me about this? And at the time, I look at it and go, Joe and I were both working with teenagers that had mental health issues. Within that year, I'd worked with 3 students that had attempted. Previous year, when I started working as a TA, teacher's aide, I was actively involved in stopping the suicide of a student. I guess not that he knew these details from my work, but knowing I was working with kids with mental health issues, I guess he didn't want to add further burden. So, and not that it would have been, this is the burden I've got now. It's not here. Right?
Yeah. What do you remember about that whole process? Like the experience with Josh and the journey out of where you'd come from and to be in a place and then have have an event like this, where you lost Josh. What did that mean for you? What happened to you as a result of these events?
I've come to an understanding and respect of time we have or time we don't have. If I've got an idea and it's safe, it's respectful, and all that sort of jazz, I'm going to run with it. Last year, my wife was invited to a conference in Florida, and she could have said no, but we went, no, let's run with this. So from that, we actually end up spending time in America traveling, like something that we wouldn't have thought of doing or achieving at any point. But why not? We've got the time. When do you think we'll be able to do it next time? I guess that's the big key factor is that looking back on my story and Josh's story, I think that's the big thing that comes out of it is, time is precious. Yeah.
What's important to you now?
Being real, not doing what I used to do and not faking it till I make it.
Yeah.
Letting people know that, today is shit for me. I've got key people at work that I'll just text, coming into work today, but it's not a good day. So do you need to go? I said, no. I've got a task to do. I'm just reflecting back to you that at some point today, I may need a space just to bring myself back together. And I've had to use those spaces. But that's, I think, the important thing is to be real and it's to understand that having that vulnerability is not a bad thing. It's really a rewiring for me, going back to childhood, talking about emotions, talking about events in your life, trying to reach out to people. That wasn't the done thing.
Yeah.
So being in a place now where I can actually go, I'm not good. I need to fix this. Can you help me? Or I need to go for a walk and have some space. Letting people know that is okay. And I guess that's the main thing that's happened since Josh, but also probably since I was 30 as well. It's been a developing thing, that acknowledging those things. It's okay. Wherever you're at, it's okay.
So how has going through, the earlier stuff, the relationships you've developed, and then, the loss of Josh, how has that changed the way you work with the world?
I'm more open to hearing about people. Not that I have been before. I've always been wanting to assist and help people, but I think there's more of a drive, to some extent, an urgency that let people know that I'm here. And for close friends, it's always been a thing. Phone's always on, sort of thing. And that's been a thing for years. But to some extent, it's the same with anyone that I'm talking with at the moment. If you need something, phone's there, message me, text me, call me. I'll get to it. And if I can't help you in that moment, I'll find someone who can. I think that's been the biggest thing. It's just, just having that, making myself available, but also, with that, I've also got to know I've got to put in boundaries, that I don't have that vicarious choice. Maintaining, even though I feel like I'm in a level spot at the moment, maintain my connections with my therapist. Be honest with myself that I need that.
Good stuff. One of the questions I think that's hardest to ask is drawing on all that you've gone through and being a wonderful example of surviving as well as making meaning. How would you you said you're open to people in those situations? What are you telling them? How are you helping them?
I guess I'm not telling them much, apart from the only message I give them is, this is your space. This is your time to speak or cry or be silent. Whatever, this is your space. It's not so much of a telling a person of what to do. It's providing them that space. And I guess I put myself there to, I think of anchor or grounding or something like that, an earth line or whatever, that if they need that space and have someone to support them as they go through that, I can make myself available. That's only possible because of the hardships I've been through. Is that basically I've had resilience thrust upon me.
Forged in fire?
Forged in fire, yeah. Even though I'm not saying I'm anywhere near a finished product, showing people that it's okay to be, not okay.
Yeah.
Giving them the permission, if they need that permission to cry, allowing them that space.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, or laugh hysterically, whatever is going on for them.
Yeah. It's amazing, mate. Considering everything, you're like the moments of marmalade all through your life and so on. I find that beautiful. What are you hoping next? What do you look forward to? What's coming?
I really like to finish this degree because that's really grinding me at the moment. Got 8 units left, and I've never, I didn't finish high school. I didn't finish a landscaping apprenticeship. I didn't finish a baking apprenticeship.
Wow.
I've started courses and dropped them because I wasn't in a headspace. And so finishing this degree will be a massive milestone. And from that, moving into working more in schools, but more on the mental health support side of things. So be looking at educating myself again, put myself through another degree, be a social worker in schools, mental health advocate, I guess. And so, because that's my drive at the moment, minimizing the stigma around mental health. So, providing people with the information. This stuff is very real, a major concern for our communities. I guess my real kind of goal, thoughts on purpose is that's what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
But first, get rid of this degree, get that done. But in the background, I'm reaching out to people, working out how can I educate myself to assist others, because I know that even though I've got a lived experience and had different opportunities and learning new skills, there's still more that I need to have to be an effective advocate, I guess.
Well, mate, I would say that what's happening now, what you're doing in the world, and how you mentioned drive earlier, and how you are now driving. You're bringing purpose to what must have been an incredibly difficult time. And I just want to acknowledge that, mate. Thank you for the work you're doing, for the men that you're helping, and the world. And I think, I've spot something that I think is making the best of an unimaginable situation. So that's my thoughts, mate. But I'm mostly thinking how grateful I am to have a chat with you this morning. And I want to really show my appreciation for you sharing such difficult material with the world. I think it's a real benefit. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Kintsugi Heroes. Please like and share the show to your friends so we can get this out to even more people. If you have a story you'd like to share with us, please reach out using the contact details below. And join us next week for our next hero's story. Until then, keep being you, and remember that we are all heroes in our own unique way.
Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. When it hits you in the middle of the night and the truth burns so bright. Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. Take pride in those cries. It's only for tonight, and then you rise. Only when you're broken. Only when you're broken. Only when